Welcome to Breaking the Chains, where we dive deep into addiction, break down misconceptions, and explore paths to recovery. Today, in our very first episode, we're taking on a misunderstood topic: sex and love addiction. We'll unpack what it really is, how it impacts lives, and why it's so much more than just loving too much. Let's get started on breaking the chains.
Okay, so today we're going to kind of dive into something maybe a little bit sensitive for some people. We're going to talk about sex and love addiction.
Okay.
Which, we all love a good love story, but,
right, yeah.
How do we differentiate?
Where's the line?
Where's that line?
Right.
And we have this excerpt that really focuses on just the basic definition and how it differs from just typical romantic or sexual interest, which, we all have. So,
of course.
This is a good one.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that this excerpt does really well is it talks about how this addiction can impact your self-esteem and like your sense of self-worth.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really important distinction to make.
Well, and it brings up how it's not just about the craving for connection.
Right, it's about how those cravings start to define you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like kind of take over.
Exactly. And it's interesting because the source actually compares this addiction to things like gambling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
I see that.
You can kind of see how they're similar, right? Because you get this rush, this dopamine hit.
Oh, yeah.
From winning a bet or, from a really intense romantic encounter.
Sure.
And it's that reward cycle that can really start to drive your behavior.
So it's almost like it's not even really about like the sex or the love. It's about
it's the feeling.
Fun. Yeah.
It's the way your brain is responding to those things.
Yeah. So then how do you so if we're talking about, okay, you get this rush, how do you then differentiate between healthy and addictive behaviors?
Yeah.
Because I think that's where
a lot of people.
That's what I like about this source, is that it gives, some very clear examples.
Yeah.
So let's say you love going on dates. You like meeting new people.
Yeah.
But you're also fine just, staying home reading a book.
Totally.
Yeah. Right. Someone who's struggling with this addiction might feel this like constant need to be seeking out that romantic encounter.
Got it.
To the point where they're neglecting other parts of their lives.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like the addiction takes over.
It takes over.
Everything else gets
work, friendships, hobbies.
Yeah.
It all kind of falls by the wayside.
And so obviously that has a huge impact on your emotional well-being.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Because you're constantly being driven by these needs.
Yeah.
You're engaging in behaviors that you might regret later.
Right.
You're dealing with guilt and shame, and it can be really emotionally draining.
So you kind of get trapped in this cycle of seeking fulfillment,
and never quite getting there.
Never getting there. Yeah. And then that impacts.
Yeah, and your sense of self gets lost in all of that.
Right, it really does.
Yeah.
And I think the point the source is making isn't to judge anyone for their desires or choices, but to recognize when those desires start to
control you.
Yeah.
And then you lose yourself.
And the important thing to remember is that there is help available.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Recognizing those patterns.
Yeah.
Is a huge step.
Huge step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is support out there, but it does make me think a little bit about like,
what's that?
Could societal norms or even media portrayals kind of blur those lines?
I see what you're saying.
Between like what's healthy and what's
because we're constantly bombarded with these messages about finding the one.
Right.
Yeah, and having this passionate romance and and it makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Like how much of that is actually healthy versus how much of it is maybe feeding into something that could become problematic.
And that's kind of the question I want to leave everyone with.
Yeah.
It's like, how much does our cultural landscape shape our understanding
of love and intimacy?
Yeah, and like, where does that healthy desire become something a little more compulsive?
Right.
And obviously, this is just the start of...
It's a complex issue.
Well, it's a lot to unpack there.
From our conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Definitely something to think about.
Lots to think about.
Absolutely.
All right, well, this was a great deep dive.
Yeah, it was.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And I'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell for more.